Hey, so I recently made this super cool, creepy D&D-esque image of this knight walking into a dungeon in pixel art, and it's actually the new YouTube banner, but I really don't do this often enough, but I wanted to make a video breaking down how I made it and kind of just talking about the process of making it. Not only because it'll help me, because I'm kind of new to pixel art, but also to, hopefully help you. So let's get into it. Alright, it is voiceover time, just like the good old days, which was like 2 videos ago before I started putting my face on camera. This image was super fun to make. I really tried to focus a lot on lighting and just expanding and pushing myself within the pixel art medium and all that stuff. I like to use, or I've been liking to use, as I've been learning the medium, pretty simple color palettes. I feel like the medium itself, I'm going to try to say medium over and over again, but the medium is helped by limited palettes, right? You don't want to do too much because you can overwork a pixel art image very easily, I found. So I kind of kept this one, I think, to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I think like 12 to 15, maybe 16 colors by the end, but under 20 for sure. I kind of shifted some colors around and some shades and hues around as needed. A really big part of pixel art as well is contrast and color contrast, because if you don't have a big enough difference between your tones, things really just get muddy and it's very hard to visualize things, and especially because the image is made up of tiny squares, everything just blurs and blends together. So if you want to avoid that and have a much more like graphic and stark image, you really got to use some pretty big tone shifts and luminance shifts in your colors. Here, if you're watching at the same time I'm talking, which you should be, I tried to add the fire reflection a bit too early. That's something I should have waited to do till the end. I also started off with too light of a color for the line art. I was going to try and do no lines by the end, but I am just a sucker for a black outline in an image, and it really just helps separate characters off the background stuff, characters specifically. So even in my previous artwork before I took on pixel art as a new medium, I really enjoyed having more of a painted sort of background or very minimal lined background, but leaving the character lined almost like an old cartoon, so they pop off the background a little bit more and has that, like I said, that graphic kind of look to it. Pretty much all, going back to what I was talking about earlier, all of the objects in the frame of this image are made of about 3 to 4 colors max, and honestly I wouldn't really go over that, especially in the pixel size I was working at. I think it was 240 by 144. It's whatever the Game Boy Advance pixel size is roughly. It was around that size. I'll put it on screen somewhere. That's kind of the size I've been working in, mainly because growing up I played a crap load of Game Boy Advance games. So it's fun just working in that because it just fulfills my inner child and makes me feel like a little kid as I add tiny dots on the screen. So that's super fun. I broke out my old Cintiq 16 as well, so I'm working on the PC now, an A-Sprite instead of on the iPad. I still have been using PixSquare on the iPad as like a mobile app to make pixel art, like while I'm at work at lunch and stuff like that, if I so desire. But yeah, it's been super fun getting into the medium, and I've just really enjoyed kind of getting my feet wet in it. I feel pretty comfortable with it at this point. I've been drawing for about 7 years now, so I'm not new to art. So learning a medium is a bit different than like learning to draw in the first place, right? But kind of we're looking at the image again here. This was probably the most fun part of the image for me, which seems like it's really monotonous, but just carving out all these shapes and kind of filling in detail. I really needed something to just add detail, with illustrations I've found over the years of making art. Without getting to like a maximalist level, I found more is more. I tend to, at least in my own way of doing things, not do enough. So like really detailing things in is super important, especially with an illustration. With like a comic, it's not as important, but when you're making a static image, you really, I've found, at least for myself, at least in my own sensibilities, like to add as much detail as possible. Just because otherwise the image looks flat, it looks boring, there's no dimension. Even though the background is fairly simple, like it's just a bunch of like square bricks, almost equal size. I probably could have copy and pasted it, even though I didn't. But it's really simple, but it just adds so much instead of just having like a flat gray background, which you could totally do too, but you'd have a much more minimalist looking image, right? And that's not really what I like to go for. And kind of going back to the shape carving thing, adding in the pieces in that black area to the left, which we'll get to, was probably my favorite part of the whole thing. But just adding more lighting here, if you can notice, the background entirely is all just 3 tones of that blue-green kind of color, plus the black, of course, to denote like deep shadow. But yeah, and you can see me here kind of adding in some extra shading on the bricks. This is more for the actual torch. I really struggled with that for this image. I would say that's the hardest part of this image is not necessarily like the directional lighting, but just shading in a way that provided enough pop, I guess, for that torch, because I didn't want to just like leave it like that, because a colored light like that will cast like a more orangey shadow too, right? Your shadows are whatever color of your, well, like if you're outside, it's the color of the sky, but in a closed room like this, your shadows are going to be the color of your torch, right? Or they're going to have a warmer tone to them as opposed to like a bluer tone. Like your shadows generally are going to be more blue toned, but with a light source like that, they will have like a warmer tint to them, you know? So that's kind of where I got that like kind of blue-green color from, because if you add a bit of yellow to blue, you know, you get green, right? So that was kind of the color choice there. And just kind of making those rings of that with the dithering, kind of, I wanted to allude to like the light kind of fading out as it got into the background. And man, dithering to me, I feel like looks super tedious, but I actually really enjoy it. It's kind of therapeutic, just adding all those little tiny dots. Here I'm adding in a bloom for the torch. I kind of get rid of it. A lot of the time when I'm coloring images, I kind of push to the end, like the final effects, because I just want to get an idea of what it's going to look like. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, just because I get excited. So that's some of this, just kind of playing with like, what's this going to finally look like with the lighting. I ended up doing something much more broad, I would say, which I think worked out a lot better. I feel like with a traditional illustration, you can kind of get a bit more granular, like I'm trying to do here. But with pixel art, I think, you know, because it's pixel art, simple is better, right? You can't do those like really minute adjustments that you would do with a regular illustration. Something like this, where it's just like essentially a ball of pixels on top of the image, I think works a lot better just to draw the eye and draw attention. Less is more, very much with pixel art. I know I said more is more earlier, but in terms of lighting and your shading, less is more. Detail, more is more. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, just adjusting the rendering here, and just really trying to define shapes properly with perspective. That's something I've kind of been struggling with too, is because obviously 1 pixel can make a huge difference. So getting that perspective right is extra important, or as close as you can get to it. And with a bit of the hand there, where he grips the sword, you can kind of just see the edge of the thumb. That's kind of the way it's supposed to look. And here, kind of we're adding in some details in the black. This was not on the plan originally. I'll see if I can put an image of my thumbnail sketch for this. I generally, for illustrations, do like 1 to 5 thumbnail sketches. Sometimes just, you know, till I feel like the image has a good composition. I'll usually do at least 2. Just really kind of adding in detail and cutting out shapes in the black to make it not so boring, and just have like a huge black blob on the left of the screen would not look great. I would say that's probably the hardest or second hardest part of the image after the lighting, just making it not look boring after I got the part of the image that I had crystallized in my head, which was the night kind of coming out of the doorway there. And then I got to the left side of the image and I was like, what the heck am I going to add over here? So Here I am just kind of wasting time adding more dithering while I think about what I'm going to do. And eventually, as I just continue to add little detail, thinking about what I'm going to do, you'll see me start to add the goblins in. And here I am, adding the goblins in. I was like, this needs some freaking goblins. If I don't know what to do in an image, I'm usually going to add some little creature or monster off to the side that just draws some extra attention. I've really noticed with my artwork, I like to draw people in peril. I don't know where that comes from or why, but I do. So, or like, impending peril, like the adventurer hero thinks they're safe, but then there's something in the background that's going to get them. I don't know what kind of therapy I need to go to analyze that, but, that's a reoccurring theme for sure in my artwork that I've noticed. So here I did finally copy and paste a part of the image and then just totally redid it with that third goblin head. But just adding these was super fun. I would say, like I said earlier, this was probably my favorite part of the image. The image at this point in my mind is like pretty much done. So now I'm just playing, having fun, adding little details because these guys are in a darker area. They're very limited color palette. The most you can see is a little barely reflection on their swords and skin of that kind of lighter blue-green color, and their eyes, of course, glowing in the dark because they're goblins and they're spooky. And then their skin tone is just one single color, that darker blue-green. Because if you didn't know, when you get the super dark lighting, your eyes actually see in black and white, or close to black and white, monochrome. So it's kind of like looking into that darker area. You're only going to see pretty much one shade, and kind of just adding some more brick in here to fill out the composition. Really, the purpose of that is, like I said, to fill out the composition, but also just show the pattern carrying over into the dark, like just to extend the room out a bit, make it feel a bit more full. The big two eyes in my brain were kind of like a goblin king, or like, the goblin leader. Just adding a bunch of little dots there because they're in the dark part. That left side of the room is like the deep darkness, and you can really just see their eyes glowing just from the bit of torchlight that's touching them, was kind of the thought. With those goblins in the dark shadow on the bottom middle, it was really fun to just kind of add that perspective in with the really simple pixels. It was just enjoyable, I guess. And here I felt like the left side of the image was still a bit too bare, and I felt like the left side of the image, it looked like it was kind of going off into nothing. So I kind of wanted to add something here to just kind of make your eyes stop, kind of looking left to right, because this is technically the YouTube banner. I was going to put like, Zach Moti art in the middle. So it's the goblins in the middle are kind of like the underline to that. And I don't want your eye to go all the way to the left to where it's going off screen. So I added this statue in there to kind of stop you from going too far. Like you hit another kind of source of light with the little crystal ball in the hand, and then your eye goes back to the right to the night. So like it's kind of like a ping pong of the eye. Just things to think about. I would say I was maybe thinking about that like 50% when I made it, but then it's something like I realized I did as I got deeper into the drawing. But really, especially from doing video work, like where your eye is drawn is very, very important. So for composition and things like that. So, just always be thinking about that and being like, when I close my eyes, open them, look at your image, and where is your eye going? Generally, it's going to be to the brightest or warmest part of the image first, and then it will kind of go to the next brightest, so on and so forth. And then you'll start seeing all those darker little details of the goblins and stuff last. At least that's the goal. And then here, I felt like the foreground was kind of the same. There wasn't a lot there. Like your eye was going just down off the page. So as I'm adjusting the little hand shadows there, which I think I ended up changing off camera later on, I'm putting these like red-orange kind of foreground pieces on. As you can see, I labeled it framing in the layers to kind of make your eyes stop at the bottom of the frame and really just look at that center left-right swath of the image where the knight is looking at the crystal ball, and then you see the goblins in the background. Really, that's kind of the order I wanted you to look at the image in. Knight, crystal ball, and then oh crap, goblins. This is kind of the way. But here, kind of at the end of the drawing, pretty much illustration, I'm just adding in these little foreground pieces to, like I said, stop your eye at the bottom. And yeah, that's pretty much a done deal. and just adding little details in the statue, and then eventually I add in a new signature, which actually is a symbol from my D&D world, which I think I'm going to try and just keep going, because it's really difficult making... I don't like signatures too much, but I think a little like rune or symbol like that, I really enjoyed. It's actually the symbol of the elder god from my D&D world, known as Hope you enjoyed the image. This is what it looks like finally done. You can probably see there's some minor adjustments to the time lapse, where I just kind of went in and added like little bits of extra light and some little finishing touches. And yeah. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Yeah, if you hadn't noticed on the last video, I'm kind of doing something new to end these videos. I'm just doing something like a cool shot to kind of work in some more of my videography skills and just kind of, I don't know, have fun with YouTube and do a bit more with it. So hopefully you're enjoying that. Hopefully you're enjoying this new format. And next up is a profile picture. Not sure I'm going to record that for a YouTube video, but I definitely want to slowly inch more towards this pixel art kind of vibe for the channel. I'm really enjoying it, and I hope you are too. And yeah, I'll see you when I see it.